Social media has completely changed the way we share stories and show up online. We're not just competing with other entrepreneurs anymore. Heck, you're not even just competing with other marketing gurus or other coaches out there anymore. Today, you're competing with dog videos, dancing trends, and yes, ASMR and people eating mukbangs in their car. But here's the one thing. The scroll stops where the story starts. And if you're wondering why your offer just isn't landing or isn't converting, it's likely not the strategy. It's likely going to be the story or the lack of it behind the strategy. In this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 reasons why storytelling drives decisions and why you're just one story away from your next biggest client. Do you want to know something really wild? Some of my best performing videos actually was with no mic, no fancy lighting, and no fancy setup. No filming studio, no none of that. And do you want to know what's actually wild about the wild? Is that I just showed up as myself. No fancy gimmicks. Yeah. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? They were shot in my 2012 Volkswagen in the front seat, just acting a fool, right? And just putting the camera on and just showing people that it's okay to just share your ideas. You don't need some fancy marketing plan. You don't need some fancy edited script. You just need a real idea and an actual working camera. It sounds so crazy, I know. Comic tee on and vibes on, of course. That's all I really needed. There was times where I didn't even want to post what I wanted to post because I was so afraid of what people would think about it. But the message, it connected because people then DM'd me. People then were commenting, that felt so real. This is exactly what I've been feeling. This is exactly what I needed to hear today. And to me, that's everything that I needed. That's the exact reason why I show up every single day, crafting one singular message for one singular person. And what nobody said was, you need that ring light. What happened to that fancy audio track? Why don't you have this fancy DSLR camera? No one said those things because no one actually cared about that. The only thing people in your audience actually care about is the impact and what you can do for them. That's it, because real recognize real, and that's the power of storytelling. Let me break this down for you. Number 1, stories build faster than tips or hacks. Anyone could drop a fact or statistic. It's like anyone can find information on Google or even ChatGPT, so you gotta be bigger than that. Your lived experience, that's exactly why people are dropping on your content, and it's the exact reason why people are gonna stay. It's your decision to make them want to stay. Your lived experience is what makes me feel like I know you. What story can you tell in order to drive your audience to make it feel like they actually can connect with you, like they can actually get to know you? Samuel chapter 16 verse 7 says, "People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Your audience does the same exact thing. Your audience isn't looking at the materialistic things. They're not looking at what kind of Gucci belts you have. They're not looking at what kind of cars you drive. They're not looking at the things and appliances in your houses. They're looking at what transformation, what impact, what real value can you give your audience to actually serve them a real purpose. Can you drive your audience from a real result from point A, from where they're stuck at now, to point B, to where they're trying to go? Your story is the exact vehicle that's going to drive them from point A to point B. And your story is the exact thing that lives between that gap. Your audience needs something real and tangible that they can actually connect with, that they can actually apply. Your audience doesn't need just another highlight reel or another guru marketing course. Every interview I've ever walked into, my story has actually hit harder than my resume. I can list the titles, the accomplishments, the accolades, the whatever. But the moment I share why I do what I do, people lean in. Like the time I shared what it was like to step into rooms as a queer trans man of color and use my voice anyway, that story didn't just break the ice, it built the bridge. Because facts inform and stories transform. And in that moment, the person across the table wasn't hiring my resume. They were hiring my resilience, my presence, and my purpose. Reason number 2, stories reduce resistance. The reason why your stats and all your fancy presentation slides and your fancy VSL isn't connecting is because you're just sharing the information. It's an information overload. And essentially you're just sharing what your customers already know. They already know that they have that problem. And if they already know they have that problem, your job is to essentially tell them why they need to solve it today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but today. You explain the data, you explain the research, but your customers still don't get it. I get it. I've been there. But you tell it as a story and boom. Automatically, your customers are going to see themselves in your story. Your job is to make sure, and I cannot express this enough, that you are creating content for your audience and not your ego. Write that down if you need to. When I talk about the health effects of intersectionality, I would pull up like a dozen stats. Like I would talk about intersectionality, like from how it started to the core to where it's going and how it matters and all this stuff. But nothing would shift the room until I started talking about my real lived experiences as a queer trans man. It had nothing to do with what I knew. It just had everything to do with how I said it. I talk about what it's like navigating healthcare systems that weren't built with me in mind, the misdiagnosis, the assumptions, the quiet exhaustion of being unseen, and suddenly, people who may never live that reality get it. Because it's not just a concept anymore, it's lived. It's human. It's the real me. That's the real power of story. It lowers the guards. People stop resisting, and people start listening. Reason number 3, and the biggest reason there is that stories shift identities. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that your story should be able to challenge every single limited belief that your customer goes on. So there's a hero's journey that your customer is going to go through, and it's so important that every single step of your story, every single step of your content is leading them through point A to point B. That's important, right? Think about the hero's journey of The Lion King, or think about the hero's journey of Cinderella, right? They all have a journey, they all have challenges, and then they all have obviously encounters that they face within those challenges, but there's always some type of happy ending or some type of solution, right? And that's the story you want to give. So at every step of the way, you should have a story. So think of it like this: every point you make should have a story. Every story you make should have a point. People don't buy information these days. People are buying transformation. And so when you learn to shift your thinking from how can I prove myself to how can I leverage myself, you start to think bigger. You need to start telling a story that says, this is who I was, this is what I learned, and this is who I am now. That's what helps your audience go from, wait, maybe I can too. I used to live in mental health facilities. Back then, I couldn't see myself as a leader, a speaker, or even someone with a future. But through those years, I learned resilience. I leveraged my voice. I discovered that my story wasn't something to hide, but it was something that was worth sharing. It was something that my audience was waiting and begging to hear. I was the only one stopping that. I was my biggest enemy. Today, I stand on hundreds of stages and speak to audiences that once felt out of reach. Not because I had the perfect resume, but because I allowed my transformation to become my testimony. That's the identity that stories create, and that's where you go from being stuck to being seen. That's where you go from being invisible to being unforgettable. So here's what I want you to do after this video. I want you to think about one moment that specifically changed either your way of thinking or the way you move today, whatever it is. Think of one transformational thing, whether that's a podcast, whether it was a movie, whether it was an encounter with someone. Think about something that has transformed one of your challenges or one of your limited beliefs today? Write it down. Write it down in a notebook. Write it down on a Google Doc. Write it down in Notion. Whatever it is, I want you to capture it. Now, I want you to go ahead and post that thought. No fancy setup, no fancy technical things. Just post it. I don't care if it's a text post. I don't care if it's a video. Share one specific moment to one specific person. Your message could be literally the bridge to someone else's journey right now. This is exactly why I built my free signature story building workbook, so that way you can go ahead and craft your signature story and build it and implement it today. If you want to turn your life lessons into real content, real strategy, and real stories behind the business, you're going to want to go ahead and grab the signature playbook while it's still free. You're going to go ahead and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Oh, and tell me in the comments below, what is one big fear or concern you have when it comes to sharing your story or either sharing your ideas on an online presence? I'd like to know, and I'll create a video about how to help you on that next. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.